So it's no surprise to anybody who's been following my channel that I'm a huge Gears of War fan. It's one of the common games that I test most of my headsets, controllers, and just general accessories with when it comes to the Xbox. And of course, Gears 5, Gears 4, 3, Ultimate, those are all games that I'm incredibly fond of. I've even put a video together related to how much I like those entries in the series overall. However, the black sheep of the series does appear to be Gears of War Judgement. And to be forward, when the game had released initially in 2013, I pretty much skipped it. I had some friends who were pretty active into that game on the 360, and I decided to give it a chance, and I wasn't really that impressed. A lot of the changes that I felt like they made to the game were, to me, kind of silly and took away from what made Gears of War feel so good. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to skip this entry in the Gears series and went back to Gears 3. However, fast forward years later, we had some solid entries with Ultimate, 4, 5, all great games in the Gears of War canon. However, over the years, I've decided that maybe I was a little too harsh on Judgment, and recently I decided to give it another chance. And in this video, I'm going to go over my thoughts and really if it was as bad as I remembered. So let's take a look. To be forward, when I decided to go back into Gears of War Judgment, I didn't really touch the campaign. If I'll be transparent, to me, Gears shines the best when it comes to its online modes, and I've been mixed about the campaign. Some of them were really good. The bulk of them, however, other than 2 and 4, I haven't really touched or played too much of. So I did jump right into the online mode, and it turns out, lo and behold, there's approximately 0 people playing Gears of War Judgment. That's not me being funny. That appears to be what the case is when I tried booting it up. However, eventually the game did put me into a match, and in this match it was a free-for-all mode, which, to be fair, I was actually quite excited about when they announced that with Gears Judgment, but the way they executed it wasn't so great, and playing it now with 0 player count, you're pretty much only playing it with bots. Now, the first thing that stands out to me is that there isn't a real active reload. There's a way to quick reload, I guess, but it doesn't really do anything, at least not as I understand. One of the other weird things is your radar button that I'm typically used to is actually a grenade button, which is different, and to me made this feel a little more action-oriented. And part of me, as I'm kind of playing this multiplayer mode again, realizes that I think at that time, the developers of this People Can Fly were trying to take Gears and kind of more apply it to the Call of Duty audience, who was into more fast-paced style shooters, and that's kind of how this feels. And I guess I get that philosophy to a degree, but what I realize is Gears of War isn't Call of Duty, and that's not what it was ever trying to be. And I think that the actual solid core player base for Gears of War isn't really looking for this type of game, and that's a lot of the reason why I think this game fell flat on its face when it came out, because as I play through this more and more here, I realize that the game's missing a lot of the strategy or a lot of the approach that I preferred playing when it came to Gears of War overall. And that's a lot of the forced tactical elements that come with the way the game moves and plays. And I understand this is free-for-all mode and it's a little more hectic, and even Gears 5 it can get relatively hectic, but just the way your guns even operate and the way you just kind of quick throw grenades, it just doesn't feel great. It feels like this game is trying to take Gears out of what Gears of War is and make this more of a fast-paced shooter, or I guess just more, to me, is what it felt like, more of a generic third-person shooter, which isn't really what I wanted out of Gears. And again, I tried to give this some serious playtime, but I tried some of the weapons too. I wasn't overly fond of the random weapons that they had going on. I thought that they just didn't feel great overall, and while some of them were just upgrades or additions from Gears 3, some of them just don't feel really that exciting to use. And I think overall that's kind of a great way to sum up Gears Judgment. The guns don't feel great to use. Even the Gnasher seems to have weird hit detection issues, and it's made even weirder by the fact that the characters don't have a fall down for you to execute them. They just flop over and die. And as I was playing through this, some of the thoughts I was going through when I was trying to get back into this and give this a fair shot is this almost feels like a choppier version, but a more fast-paced version of some of the Gears of War games. Almost kind of like how Call of Duty Mobile feels versus actual Call of Duty. It feels close, but it's just not the same thing. And I understand there can probably be some enjoyment there, and there's probably some people who enjoy Gears Judgment, although apparently not many because there's only 0 players online as it stands. But as a whole, the game just feels a little wonky. It feels like a weird deformed version of Gears, or almost like some 90s expansion pack version of Gears that isn't quite Gears, but it kind of feels like it. And that's kind of a big disappointment because, you know, Gears 3, even the original Gears, to me, still hold up quite well. They still have a lot of great things about them that make Gears of War feel like Gears of War, like the approach to running and rushing enemies or not, and the strategy that comes with that. But Gears Judgment felt like they were almost trying to simplify what made Gears special, and I think as a result, that's why this game didn't perform the way it should have, and it's also why I think a lot of gamers who are Gears fans kind of denounced this one, and myself included. Now, there is the caveat here. I've only put in maybe 10 hours max between when it came out and now in playing it, but I think at this point I've got a good enough metrics to think to myself, this really isn't a solid entry in the Gears canon. And it's quite unfortunate because I would argue almost every other entry except this one were great entries in that series.